How's it going, everyone? Sethphir here, and welcome back to another Tower of Fantasy video. I get a lot of questions on my channel. What is the best characters in the game? What team should I run? And today I am here to answer all of those questions. As you can see behind me, I've been compiling the data and doing the math, and I'm going to bring to you my Vera 2.0 tier list. This is going to include a variety of tier lists for different roles and categories of players. So the breakdown is going to be as follows. First, we will talk about DPS players and each elemental type that will be best for them. Then we will talk about tanks, followed by healers, and then finally free to play or low star tier list. So this is going to include a lot of goodies, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, starting with the first one, DPS. When we talk about a DPS tier list, we have to include the different variety of elements. That's going to be fire, physical, ice, and volt. So let's go ahead and start with fire first, since the brand new character Ruby will be coming with Vera 2.0. The Fire Elemental team is going to be as follows for DPS. Ruby and Cobalt are going to be the core components of the Fire Elemental team, and the third slot can be changed out depending on availability for characters. Claudia would be the best option for that, with a low skill cooldown that's going to buff the damage on the rest of your team and providing a lot of utility for that. And then you could probably look into picking up some maybe more supportive type characters like either a Nemesis or a Zero replacement for Claudia if you wanted to go that route. If you feel like you're taking a bit more damage and you wanted a little bit more survivability with the trade-off of less damage, you can go ahead and enter that path. And King and Huma are fire characters that kind of just do the same jobs that Cobalt and Ruby do, which is damage and shatter. So since those are already there, they're just kind of the weaker tier versions. You could throw them in the fire comp as well. However, I just don't believe it's going to add that much value, as the other characters seem to do the job, and generally buffing damage or having some sort of supporting character is going to be better. The next team we're going to be discussing is the Ice Element, which involves using Frigg and Meryl as a core component. This will allow you to have a lot of damage and shatter at your hands in terms of utility, so you're going to focus on dealing a mass amount of ice damage. The same logic applies to before, as Claudia being the most important third piece, as she has a powerful buffing utility with her 1-star ability, and she also brings to the table a lot of low cooldown, high generating energy moves, which is going to power up your ice comp even further. You could consider swapping out Claudia for Nemesis or Tsubasa. Both of those are strong options. Nemesis is a better defensive option, which adds more utility in terms of healing, and Tsubasa would be the ice damage alternative option, but requires a little bit more maintenance and uptime to do some of her damage abilities. So that's going to be entirely up to you and dependent on what kind of comp you want to run. And additionally, you could consider using Shiro if you have very strong play, because she will allow you to reset the long cooldowns of Meryl and Frigg with her shatter ability at 3 stars, which is going to be very powerful. So keep that in mind, that these are all good options. Next up, we have the Volt lineup, which includes Crow and Nemesis as the core. Crow and Nemesis are very, very powerful, but you do have a small option to trade out Crow for Samir. Samir versus Crow is a very age-old debate. Crow, in my opinion, does more damage, especially to a single target. However, Samir has a lot of utility in terms of grouping monsters and getting big AoE damage out, so it's going to really be up to your playstyle preference. But I think that the top performing team in Bygone is probably going to be Crow, Nemesis, and Claudia. You're going to do a lot of damage with these characters and buff up mad, insane DPS for Crow to kind of carry your entire team. If you want to swap out different options, you can consider using Shiro or King instead of Claudia if you want more shatter capability, or you happen to have higher stars over one or the other. But that's basically going to be what you're looking at here. I will say that personally I use Nemesis, Samir, and Shiro because that's what I have, but it does work very well as a powerful combo. It allows you to reset a lot of your skills and deal a ton of damage. And lastly, we will talk about the physical DPS team. This one is going to be very limited. There's not a lot of options. You must use Shiro and Claudia as the cornerstone to trigger the physical resonance, and after that, Nemesis is going to be your best third character option. This team is quite strong. It does do a lot of damage, but there's not much room to pivot anything else. You can consider trading in Nemesis for one of the other healers to keep your team alive if you do not have Nemesis, but generally this is going to be the best route to go. Now that DPS is covered, let's talk about tanking. Tanking is very interesting in this game because you also do not have a lot of options. The only tanks available to you in terms of SSR characters are Meryl and Huma, so you are forced to build a comp around that currently at this present point in time. You could consider using the SR weapon NA, but I don't know if it's going to get you very far. The best support weapon to line up with those two tanks is going to be Shiro, and the reason that Shiro is very powerful is because she applies the Grievous debuff to the target, which is going to add 20% damage to your entire team, and as a tank, we don't care about our personal damage too much, we just need enough to do aggro, and from there, we just want to increase the damage of our damage-dealing teammates. Shiro also brings to the table with 1 star the ability to increase damage and shatter to everybody inside of her 1 skill's ability by 30%, and she has a Grievous extension at 5 stars, which is going to make her incredibly good for maintaining that damage bonus uptime buff. So now that you have that covered, the only alternative you could consider would be either Nemesis to slot in for Shiro, and the reason you would do that is if you needed extra healing, or you wanted to consider using the slow time orb to slow down the boss. That could be considered utility, but the other options would be trading out for Ruby or Frigg, which will complete a resonance for you since you have 1 ice character and 1 fire character there in terms of tanking. You could use Frigg and focus on Meryl and get increased shatter and damage and be a bit more of a selfish tank player, or you could use Ruby to focus on dealing fire damage and getting a little more DPS out. But once again, I highly recommend that you focus on buffing your teammates as a tank because your damage is just not going to be that good considering you're not in the DPS resonance and you're going to most likely be getting hit all the time, which is going to stop you from doing damage as well. Now we have to talk about our best friends in the world, healers. Healers have a little bit of a limited option pool as well, but in my opinion, the best healer comp is going to be Coco Reader, Zero, and Shiro. Shiro has the same logic as the tank setup. It's going to be a piece that gives a lot of utility for the comp in terms of increasing the damage from other players in your party, which is exactly what you're aiming for as a support player. And then we have Coco Reader being a very powerful healer. Not only that, she adds a lot of damage and shatter boost as well as crowd control immunity to your team, which is very important so you can get out of things like the Nemesis slow orb in the Shattered Realm raid instance. It's a really good bailout, right? It's a really strong bailout. Speaking of bailouts, Zero is a very powerful character who has an ultimate that can make your team invincible. So what this allows you to do is set there and face tank a one-shot mechanic so your team gets more DPS uptime, so it's going to be a gain overall. In addition to that, he has a lot of powerful buffs in terms of damage multipliers and damage reduction multipliers and shields that's going to keep your entire party healthy. You could consider trading out Nemesis for either Coco or Zero depending on the encounter. Nemesis does offer a lot of powerful heals. However, I think that the utility coming from the 2 characters at the top is going to outweigh that benefit. And finally, we have the free-to-play or low-star tier list. These are going to be characters that are good at dealing damage with low stars, maybe like 1 star or 3 star, and some niche characters that are really worth investing in. So first, we'll talk about the S tier. We have Crow, which is a bit odd because Crow does require a lot of stars in order to be good. However, if there is a character that you should be investing in as a free-to-play player, it's probably going to be Crow because he deals some of the highest damage in the game at the moment. So if you can get your Crow to 1 star, to 3 stars, and maybe even to 6 stars, because I have seen some free-to-play players that focus their materials in an area are able to obtain this, you will be able to get a very strong, viable character that will be useful for you for the rest of the game. So you may not even have to pull on limited banners, because as they have stated from the developers in the global balancing scheme, they are focusing on the attention of the most players possible. So every character that we have had that has came out so far has received nerfs, and that is likely to continue into the future. So standard banner characters will be powerful, and that is great news for free-to-play and low spenders. So Crow is going to be up there on that list because if you invest in him, he is one of the better characters. The next couple of characters are all characters that are low star value, so if you get Claudia to 1 star, she will activate her 24% damage buff, which is very powerful. Nemesis at 1 star will be a very strong healer for you and allow you to summon a totem which has elemental resonance as well with Crow and Sethphir, which are some of the better free-to-play characters. And then King being a powerful shield breaker that activates at 1 star only, because once you break the shield, you deal a nasty damage over time effect, which does a lot of damage. And Ruby is a very powerful character as well, because when she comes out, she doesn't require much to be good. She's just kind of good out the get-go. The further star powers will increase her damage, but there's nothing like super crazy that changes the way that Ruby plays very dynamically, so she will be very strong for you even at low cost. Following that, we have the A tier. Sethphir is a very powerful character at 1 star as well, gaining the ability to proc extra damage on every time you crit, which is very good. I think that Crow outshines her a little bit, but Sethphir is super fun to play, so if you want to go that route, you can. Huma is a powerful tank character, but also a damage dealer, in my opinion. At 1 star, she adds the ability to proc up extra bonus attack when you switch into her axe form, which makes her hit super hard, especially with her dodge attack, so she can be very deadly in terms of that. Meryl is another character that requires not very much star power, it just requires high stamina, which you gain by just playing the game. If you can get to 1 star, this character will single-handedly carry you through the entire Wormhole series. Every time you shatter somebody's shield, you're going to gain percentage health back, which is not reduced, so this is going to be a very powerful tool and option. And it is nicely paired with Frigg, who at 1 star has the ability to create the frost domain and gain the frostiness stacks, which sounds like a weird word, but trust me, that's the way it's worded. You're going to be able to proc a lot of ice damage in this little arena, and you can pair it well with some of the other good characters here. Then we have the B tier, which is Shiro, who does require a bit more stars to be good. She does come online as a supporting weapon at 1 star, but really she gets better as the stars go on, with the reset at 3 and the extension for Grievous at 5 stars. Then we have Coco Reader and Zero, who are arguably pretty terrible before they have about 3 stars. Once you get 3 stars, they start to come online, and as you get more towards 6 stars, they're very powerful characters, but that's a lot to invest in, so if you want to go that route as a support, I will rank them very highly. So if you are a support player, they will shoot straight up to S tier. But keep in mind that as a free-to-play player, you're going to need to earn your own stuff. So you're going to need to earn it from Bygone Phantasm, and you're going to need characters like Crow and Sethphir or Meryl to carry you through that so you can get the rewards and collect on the goodies that other people can't help you with in terms of content. And then finally we have the D tier. These characters are just absolutely terrible roughly until they hit super high stars. Cobalt B is, in my opinion, very rough to use before A6. So you have to have 6 stars on her for her to come online. And Tsubasa is okay, but not that good until about the 5th star. Once you get the 5th star, she starts to kick in and do a lot of DPS, but before then, she doesn't do that much. And then Bailing, I threw down. I know it's an SR character, but it can be a powerful buffing tool, so if you're in a group of players who have a lot of weapons and star power and damage, you can pull out Bailing, because every time you headshot, you get a guaranteed Grievous, which is going to increase the damage of your team, so I figured I'd throw it in there as a utility tool that free-to-play players can use to increase their effectiveness or their value within groups. So that's going to be it for my tier list. I hope that these things helped you moving forward into Vera 2.0. I tried to cover as many categories as I could as possible to give you guys some information that was viable so that you can know what kind of characters to invest in and what's being done at the top end and within the game. Thanks for your time and watching the video. I truly appreciate that. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree with my list? What do you think should be lower? What do you think should be higher? And as always, it is a tier list, so take it with a grain of salt. Opinions may vary. Thanks for your time and watching the video, and we will see you in the next one.